Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the LitRPG podcast. I'm Ramon here. I'm bringing you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course author interviews every single week for the show. And this week it's the author interview thing. So having a good time here with Harmon Cooper. We're chatting earlier about the things that we love, LitRPG of course. And so you already know the name of my guest. I gave it away, oh no. But Harmon Cooper is the author of many novels. I looked him up on Amazon. His the page that has his novels goes on for quite a long time, I'll have to say. I think I counted over 18, and that includes the Feedback Loop series, Final Fantasy, Fantasy Online, the Last Warrior, I'm saying this wrong right now, Unigaea, Cherry Blossom Girls, and Monster Hunter NYC, which is one of the more recent novels that he has put on. We already have a couple folks in chat room, Charles Dean, Ian Mitchell, all saying hello already. Welcome to the show, Harmon Cooper.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey.
And I'm sorry about the time situation. One day I'll get a watch. So.
No, I'm laughing about like the energy of like, I try, whenever I do the intros, I try to be like super energetic, and then I switch to and you're like, hey.
I could turn it up a notch, but I purposely didn't drink coffee. I'm drinking water because like if I drink coffee, I will become quite energetic. So
no, it's fine. I just I think it's interesting. I know we actually shifted this interview from a slightly later time slot to now, so it's going to be curious to see like how this ends up going. We already have folks in the chat. See Lyrian saying, Harmon, already getting questions for you, man. If you were a superhero and had a choice of any superpower, what would it be, and how would you use it to dominate the world with it? So,
how would I use it to dominate the world?
Yeah, he's kind of making assumptions there.
I think like if I had like a badass superpower, I would just just live in whatever country I want and do whatever I want. Like I wouldn't really try to dominate. I would just dominate my life and just live wherever. If it's like summer, I would want to go. I'd have my summer house. I'd have my spring house. You know, that type of thing. Like, and just enjoying life. As for the power, oh my gosh, I'll have to think about that. You think about that. Because I have some ideas. But yeah, I'd have to think about it.
So we already have, folks are already giving you a hard time. These are mostly groups from the Facebook groups that you already know. Charles Dean is suggesting, says, you should have a beard, but none is present. So it's like you're in that halfway state between existing beardy and not beardlessly. So
it's beard purgatory.
Yeah, beard purgatory. You're in the middle at this point. So folks who don't know Harmon Cooper, again, he's an amazing writer. He's written, again, how many novels have you actually written? Have you taken count?
40. I have 40 right now. Well, if you take two of those are box sets, and so so 40, 41, something like that. I just got a pop up on my computer saying I need to do a restart. I'm like, no, not right now. So that's why I was like looking. I was counting books and like thinking like, how should I put this through? But yeah, about 40.
Holy Toledo, I was way off. I counted like 18 on your Amazon page. Do you have them all on Amazon, or are they like in various different places?
Well, that's what my book report says. I have 40, and I know that I only have 2 box sets. So that's why this says actually I have 41. So. And I think one's unpublished. It was something I published in 2011 that I've taken off. So, but that being said, I have a lot more that I wrote while I was in Asia for a different publishing house under a different name, and it was ESL books and stuff. So I think there I wrote 50, but they were like novellas. So they were like, we're talking like no more than 20,000 words. So.
Wow. So you're definitely one of the more prolific. I forget the right numbers, that writers that I've actually had on the show at this point. For folks who don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about your background, what drew you into LitRPG, anything you want to mention to someone who's coming across you for the first time?
Yeah, great. So I'm Harmon Cooper, author of a bunch of novels. I'm originally from Austin, Texas. Interesting things about me. I'm left-handed. I guess that's interesting. I lived in Asia for 5 years, and I currently live in New England. I have a working knowledge of a bunch of different languages because I've had to live in other countries and use them, which kind of comes across in my writing a little bit as well, especially in the books that are in the Proxima galaxy. Other than that, I've been writing for over a decade, and I actually first self-published in 2011, but then pulled that book back and didn't start again until 2015. And I mean, I was pretty serious about it in 2011. I even went to South by Southwest and was handing out flyers for my book, all to sell maybe 3 copies. So it was a very big learning curve. I still have 1,000 of these flyers from this book that I published at the time. So I've been doing it for a long time. And then within the LitRPG community, I've been active since 2016. And yeah, that's what's been going on there. And then I actually wrote, though, my first LitRPG, which was more game lit now, but at the time it would have been a LitRPG in 2015. That would be the Feedback Loop. And that was before like I knew what was, possible with these books. And then reading other authors, I realized like how much more stats and like I had like a turn-based battle in one of those books that I wrote at the end of 2015. I just was trying to replicate the games I played when I was a child. So, that's how I've been in the genre, and it continues to be part of my writing. Even my newer books that are more superhero-oriented have that element as well, because I find it interesting. I find it's a cool angle, and I like. Really lately, I've been liking to get into making graphics, not just having like Excel copy pastes, but like actual graphics for stats. And so it's going to continue to go with my writing. Oh, so that's me in a nutshell.
That's a very good nutshell. I have to say that's one of the better author blurbs that I've heard from someone. I usually have to do more of like, oh yeah, he also does this stuff, and you got it all, man. So good job for you. You're very good at that kind of stuff. So thank you. So we are today here talking about. Well, actually, you have 2 titles that came out recently. You have Monster Hunter NYC, and you also have the Cherry Blossom Girls 2 that just came out this week, I believe.
About 3 weeks ago. The 3rd book is coming out in 2 weeks.
Okay, so there it is. So number 3 coming out soon. So that you are definitely prolific. We have a couple comments from the chat room about your peach fuzz. Charles Dean says you should only stick with fuzz if you're going through a sketchy neighborhood. And Ian Mitchell says, or dating someone you don't like. So there. But Ian is also he's also excited that you're from Austin.
Born and raised. I was born at Brackenridge, if that means anything. So someone in Austin will be like, yeah, I know Brackenridge Hospital. So born and raised. And that's actually an interesting story. That's how I first connected into the LitRPG community, because I was kind of lurking. I was on the LitRPG page, and I read Bagwell's book, and Bagwell's from Austin. And so I actually sent him an email, and then he's the one that like added me to the author groups, like suggested I be added and things like that. So Travis is the one who kind of like put me in touch with everyone. And part of it was based on, I was from Austin as well. I'm like, this guy's from Austin, I'm from Austin. So I should send him an email, because I finished reading his book and I was like, this is amazing. I have to email this guy because he's just blowing my mind. So.
Perfect. Looks like geography matters. So we find the strangest connections in different places. For me, it was always, I read this book and look, here's a link to a group. And that's how I found everybody. And I just fell in love and became a contributor in that respect. So we all take our different paths, but we all arrive at the same love of LitRPG. So that's always nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So going back to your series, do you want to talk about them all or any of them in particular?
You know what? There's too many, so I'll just I'll put it in another nutshell, right? So on the superhero harem adventure side of things with game lit elements would be Cherry Blossom Girls, and this is about a game lit author who it's set 12 years from now, so it's in the 2030s, and he is just writing his shitty book called Breakpoint Online, when a psychic shifter shows up at his doorstep, and it just kind of goes from there. And so a lot of the book is about, which I think some authors have picked up on, is about the community, is about the development of the community. He has a friend named Luke, named after, of course, our Luke. We all know who I'm talking about, our Lyrian Luke. In fact, they show each other book covers in the actual book, and the author for Luke's books is Luke Lyrian. So there's all these types of connections, and I think it's important for the game community because it's just it's about authors, it's about shitty authors, it's about this author's not so good, but he gets like a lucky break because after the superhero shows up, he starts writing about it and self-publishing about it, and it's his first bestseller. And so it kind of, in a way that art imitates life or vice versa, Cherry Blossom has been like my bestseller times a million. And so it's even my editor, Sin, who's also Jeff's editor at Soundbooth Theater, she was just commenting on how it's really weird how you're writing in the book about having a book become a bestseller that then does become a bestseller. And so So that's Cherry Blossom, and I think that like people in this community would enjoy it because of those connections. For some people, it's pretty nerdy at points, and in the first two books, he's still like in the shell of being this wannabe writer, so he's quoting from a lot of books and stuff. That chills out as the books go when he's more into the adventure. So that's that. On the other spectrum is Monster Hunter NYC, which is the newest book in the Proxima Galaxy. The Proxima Galaxy contains several of my books. The Feedback Loop series, which is right now at 7 books. I'm a quarter through the 8th book, well, a third through the 8th book, and that's going to finish it. Fantasy Online, which I have another book left that I'm going to do in that. There's 3 books in that so far. And then Last Warrior of Unigaea. All those are connected, of course. So if you read Fantasy Online, you'll see connections with the Feedback Loop. And then that's all connected into Monster Hunt, which you probably saw. There's certain words that they use, there's certain characters and things like that. So I don't want to have something that's like Discworld, where it's you would have to really get into the lore, as much as I want something that every point can be an entry point. So if you're looking, depending on what you're looking for, that would be to jump into the Proxima Galaxy. You could go in with my new stuff. You could even go in with the Feedback Loop. I've had readers contact me and do both ways, whatever works for them. And the other thing is, all the books except Monster Hunt, which is a thing about the writing craft, are all in present tense. And so Monster Hunt is in past tense. And this is something that some readers don't like. So just a fair warning, like they're all in present tense, because I think it's an interesting tense to write in. But now I usually write past now. So in a nutshell, we have Monster Hunt, Proxima Galaxy, and then Cherry Blossom on this side.
No, perfect. That was definitely, again, a great summary of all your stuff.
A lot.
So yeah,
lots to summarize.
Yeah, no, you did an amazing job, man. I'm legitimately impressed. As I'm listening to you talk, I'm like, yeah, that's all very true. Like he's prepared. He came to this show absolutely prepared with summaries for everything. I think you actually answered all those questions that I sent you, didn't you? You wrote down answers.
Yeah, I did. I always do that. So. Yeah.
See, there you go. For me, it's like, these are questions. We'll figure out the answers. It's a conversation. But folks in the chat room are definitely, they're giving you a hard time on several respects. Charles Dean started out the conversation asking, you've mastered the looseness of the hedonistic lifestyle. But I have to ask you, how do you plan to bring food, drinks, and lazy Sundays into your books?
Well, there are some type of lazy Sundays. I mean, in Cherry Blossom, there's a lot of... hanging out and having sex. So that's kind of a lazy, well, it's not really a lazy activity. It's kind of like writing an action scene, actually. In terms of drinks, actually Feedback Loop, the MC always is drinking. So there you go, Charles, read the Feedback Loop. Jeff has been telling you, I've been telling you, he's always drinking or commenting about drinking. And so the other books know, because their MCs aren't really drinking type of people. So yeah. And then what was the other one? Drinks, lazy Sundays. What was the third one?
I believe it was food.
Oh, come on. All the books have a lot of,
somebody,
pancakes, beers,
Yeah, somebody immediately responded like, no, he's that guy. He's the one with the goblin characters that always talking about chalupas and starfish. Yeah. And then Jeff jumped in the chat room. He's like, Sambu Theater Live says, a starfish chalupa sounds completely unappetizing. And conversations back and forth, and including Pinkie Pie from Ian Mitchell. That one also apparently is not particularly appetizing.
Ian actually lives where I went to high school, so Ian's awesome. He's a good guy. He lives in Austin, but he actually lives in the northern part of Austin where I went to high school.
Right, perfect. And Lyrian, which is Luke Chimolenko, I believe.
Of course it is.
Waving. I remember the name on the first version of Asana was Lyrian Rassler, I believe. So I always recognize that name. Eventually, when I see him, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's right, that's Luke. He's chopping in saying hello.
Luke is awesome. We got some plans, I think, for July, so stay tuned.
Perfect. Plans for a get together, or plans for something you're putting out together?
It's plans for chicken wings. So
chicken wings. Oh, that sounds actually delicious. I'm getting kind of hungry. I love mine with hot sauce and ranch.
Oh man, I haven't had chicken wings since moving to New England, and it's been a crying shame. But I'm going to rectify that this summer. So.
Yep, summer's a great time for great barbecue, great friends, and hanging out. Definitely looking forward to Dragon Con in the end of August, beginning of September. For that reason, just to hang out with everybody finally. Again, in Atlanta.
I'm planning to I might end up coming for literally a Saturday night and just crashing everything and then leaving Sunday. That's what it's looking like I'm going to be able to do. But if that's what happens, that's what I'm going to do. So, yeah.
Perfect. And Jeff actually came to your defense in chat. He says, present tense is the best. Y'all some haters. So Jeff is definitely a good sign. I'm not, personally, I also write in present tense. But there are definitely some people who give me reviews like, this is the worst thing ever. God, why don't you write like 99% of the other authors in past tense? And I'm like, because that's how I write. I'm not a professional. And it's also like, it's definitely a stylized choice. And like, it gives the audience the opportunity to like really be in the character's shoes, and it makes them feel like super connected to everything that is. There's a logical opportunity there to like connect emotionally, physically. You get to use all of your character senses. It's a very intimate kind of writing style to me.
Yeah, and the other thing is, when I worked for this ESL publisher, I was actually tasked with writing books in certain tenses only. Like, I wrote a book in only present simple, or I wrote a book only in past simple, and you really expand when you just use one tense only for a book. And so, yeah, I like writing in present tense, but it's hard to switch back and forth. So I've just been doing past. One thing I talked to Luke about this today. The one thing I thought about though is the people that review that poorly. Our books, even in past tense, are at least a third in present tense because dialogue is in present tense. So when you read a book in past tense, you're reading a book that's partially in past tense, but any action-based dialogue is present tense. You were going to say like, look there. You're not going to say, looked there, with like in the past tense inflection. So I think that like our books are a lot more present tense than we realize. But when you're writing it, and when you're reading it, it can be a little bit jarring. But if you get used to it, I think it reads quite smoothly. And there's been some interesting, like John Updike wrote in present tense a lot. He's one of my favorite authors. And yeah, you can do it well. But the other thing that's you can tell when someone has mastered present tense is when they can make time pass in present tense. So the issue I think with writing in present tense is you are constantly writing about what's happening at that moment as it's happening. Right. But like it's hard to actually make a few hours pass in present tense because like up until this whole point you've been keeping like in that time frame. So I think like when I've read present tense authors who did that really well, I was like that impresses me, because it's hard to actually make future happen in present tense. So, whereas in past tense, you can just be like, hey, a month later, John went to the store, You can't really do that in present tense. Like a month later, I went to the store. It makes no sense if I was like, and then I sat down with my girlfriend. Next paragraph. A month later, I went to the store. It wouldn't, it would be very weird. So, present tense woes. No problema with present tense.
Yeah, that definitely that got more detailed than I expected it to be. But Ian Minch also agrees. He writes in present tense. Charles Dean is commenting that it hurts his brain when he reads my writing in present tense, but he likes me enough that he toughs it through. And I think for a lot of people, it's just like getting used to it. If you're used to like reading a certain tense of writing, that's just what your brain is used to. It just takes an adjustment period. You can ask my editors. I have new editors writing on this book. I've heard them comment other places like, it hurts my brain so much to read this. And then I got used to it. And, I got over it. And Harmon, it looks like I might have lost Harmon Cooper temporarily. Hopefully he'll be back shortly. Oh, and here we go. He's back.
Are you serious, man? Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. You're coming in from your phone.
Man, I was answering your question on how many books I wrote, and I was reading information on my screen. I guess I clicked the button that said restart in 15 minutes or whatever. So I'm on my phone right now, but you can hear me okay, right?
No, you're perfectly fine, man. This actually feels a little more casual because we're just you're on the couch, you're hanging out. It looks like you're just chilling. I feel like you should have a beer in your hand.
Charles, give me a beer.
Yeah, you hear them, Charles? Hey, man, get him a beer. There, now you know how your woman feels. But yeah, no, this is actually fine. So thanks for coming back, man. Well, it wasn't that short of a chat. It was actually not that big of a gap. We can cut it out or we can leave it in. Depends on which one's funnier. So there you go. So we're talking about some of your characters. Actually, I was going to ask you some questions about your characters. You have a huge range of different types of characters, some human, some non-human, some very aggressive, some are stoic. Do you have a favorite character?
I think my favorite character would be the one that my real true fans like, but regular people don't like. So like someone like Quantum, Quantum from the Feedback Loop,
right?
Like the people that have read every one of my freaking 40 books, whatever, they love Quantum. But then like a normal person reading it would hates Quantum. Same with Hiccup. Like people that like the Fantasy Online series or have read the other ones, they like Hiccup. But I've also read comments like, like what in the actual hell is going on here with this character? So characters like that, that I like to write aren't necessarily the most well-received characters. And so I try to limit them nowadays.
Well, why do you like Quantum so much?
I like writing Quantum because he's just a very brief background on Quantum. He was stuck in a digital dream world he thought it was 2 years, but it was actually 8 years. And it was a noir world. So he's kind of picked up this entire persona of this like 1950s gangster guy. And like, he has a pretty big inventory list that when the book starts, it's like 500 something items, everything from like, an M16 to like a Halo gun to like a box of pizza from Chuck E. Cheese. He just puts anything because he was using his inventory list to keep track of how long he was in the digital world. And so every day he'd put one more item. So he's very random with his items. So I liked writing him because he's the guy that like runs in without asking questions, gets killed immediately, or runs in without asking questions and is the one who saves the day. Like he kind of plays both roles. And I think he's sometimes annoying to people because he's very much, like gung-ho and very much doesn't want to, like he sees the bullshit in video games because he pretty much has lived in one. So when he goes from like a noir world to a MMORPG type world, mm-hmm. He doesn't like the turn-based battle. He thinks it's all silly. He thinks everyone's playing dress up. And so while it seems like I might be making fun of these people, it's not really me. It's how he, perceives them. So I think that can grind on people a little bit. But yeah, and then Hiccup's the same way. He's critical of everyone. And, but he's also like one of the most terrible, but he's kind of right about what he says about everyone too. Everything he says to everyone in the Myther Fickers is true. Like Ryuk being weak, Feetwix being a huckster, Zeno, who he calls Liz, being just too prissy. It's all true things, but he's also kind of terrible. And so, I mean, we've all met people that are maybe too forthright with their opinions, and we don't always like them. But then some of those people are best friends, because like they are the only person who will be honest. So regarding my newer characters, Gideon is the MC for Cherry Blossom Girls. Some people don't like him. I thought he was tamer than some of my other characters. Apparently he's not, but that's just how I am. And then the MC for who is Chase Knowles in Monster Hunt, he's pretty tame. I've seen a few reviews of people saying he's like not so strong-willed, but I'm not a real big strong-willed person. I'm not so alpha myself. I guess Charles isn't going to like this, but I'm very beta. And I'm super beta, and like, I'm not that type. So I think he kind of fits that.
It looks like he's like most of your main characters, which would make sense for an author. So that does make sense.
Yeah,
Jeff.
I mean, do you like all your characters? I mean, or their characters? I mean, I don't like the bad guys sometimes.
I love all my characters. I do. I mean, I don't have like a ton of characters. I essentially have like 6, but I only have 2 series. I don't have 48. So that probably does explain that as well. A few comments from chat room. Jeff is totally in your sign. He says Quantum Hughes represents. I guess he loves that particular character. I actually like the character a lot as well. I think of all the characters you've written, Quantum is probably among my favorite, to be honest, just because of the straightforward personality. Is a very fun, interesting character. He also says Hula Girl, and that he kills a giant with a turkey baster. Enough said. So
yeah, he did. Yeah, I forgot, because the feedback loop I've written, right now, Jeff just recorded the book 4, Reapers and Repercussion audiobook. It's going to be out next month because we're going to send it to market probably next week. But I've been listening to it to the editing listen, and I wrote it 2 years ago, so it's kind of strange to hear what you wrote 2 years ago. Yeah,
it's kind of like a refresher course in your own novel.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I'm trying to write the 8th book, and like I'm really getting refreshed on ideas. I'm like, oh yeah. And like I mean, some of the things I forgot I wrote, like he throws like a football filled with nitroglycerin into like some Greek creature's mouth, and then it's shitting blood out its mouth, and it's the other end too. And I was like, oh wow, I can't. Yeah, oops. So I can see why he's smart.
Yeah, it's kind of curious. The idea was you come up with a moment and then like recognizing later, like I wrote that. I can't believe I did that. That's so. Like how like you surprise yourself sometimes with like
You
either your
really do.
creativity or your cruelty. So there you go. So like, so that's good answer. I appreciate it. And he also says something about ha 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 the Manticore. So
The what?
he says, Jeff says, ha 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 the Manticore.
The magic.
The Manticore.
The Manticore. Yeah, that was the
Manticore,
creature
yeah.
you did that. Yeah, but I forgot completely. Like I'm listening to this. I feel like such an idiot listening to books I wrote 2 years ago because I write so much. I want to talk about that later, but the speed of which we indie writers are expected to write, it makes it very hard to keep track of everything that's happened.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'm listening to it. I'm listening to it sometimes like, wow, this is actually pretty cool. Then I'm like, are you just like stroking your own ego? And I'm like, well, I don't even remember writing this, so maybe not, you know.
That's too funny. That's happened to me several times. I again haven't written nearly as many books as you, but even going from like book 1 to 2, I stopped writing book 2 in Adventures in Terror, wrote a whole nother novel in a different series, and then going back to it now, I was like, oh, I can't. It's harder to keep track of like everybody. I have to look at my notes and all the spreadsheets I have, like things that happen. Like, oh yeah, that's right. That's how I did this thing. How I explained this magic system. And if you don't take careful notes, you almost have to reread your entire stories just to like make sure in your mind, like, oh, where everybody's at, who their like personalities are, and all that kind of great stuff there. Well, I want to talk briefly about Monster Hunter's NYC. I know that's a special project that's actually being recorded, and there's some really fun things I think you're doing with that particular project and Sound Booth Theater Live that are unique to like this almost experimental music collaboration there. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So to brief people that haven't read it, and you should totally check it out in both formats, because I think when you see it, read it, and then hear it, it's going to be very different. Because in the book, he's a kind of broke musician who doesn't have an instrument now because his instrument was broken, and it kind of weaves in music as like, he's hanging out with his bandmate who's a female. They're playing a song. And if you read it as a reader, you're just like reading some lyrics. And sometimes like the lyrics relate to the Proxima galaxy. So like the Thulian, she sings a song that is actually about the Feedback Loop Book 8, which is kind of a spoiler if like people really want to dig into it. But like as a reader, you just like read lyrics in a song in a book and are like, whatever. Well, all of these are actual songs. And some of them, the way they've come together is so interesting. So some of them were songs that I wrote. I was a musician for a long time ago, never recorded. And then I would record this on my phone to like a metronome and send it to Jeff and Annie. That was one way. Another way, and then so Annie's done a few of those songs and she did them like pretty much verbatim how I had them sounding. Another way was like I did the same thing and then Jeff which I just freaking love. It reminds me of Elton John and his writing partner. He would I'll send him lyrics how they think they should sound, and then he forms like this entire song out of it, which is really cool. That's another way. On some of in the actual audiobook, I'll be playing piano on a few things, I believe, because they have like a demo piano music in one of the scenes. Also, there's a couple other times when I didn't even write the music. I just wrote in the book the lyrics. And then Jeff wrote the music. Another time, I publicly on social media asked Jeff to write a song about a camel with the face of a donkey, and he jokingly wrote me like one line. And so I put that in the book, and now he's written an entire song based on it. And so it's really collaborative. It's really cool. And since they're in New York, 2090, there's a lot of traveling, like going to the subway, going this place. So there's going to be kind of like Persona 5-esque background music that's going on. And we're going to use this stuff, though. What's going to be cool is we're going to use this stuff as songs in the second book. So the first book is going to have you're going to feel and hear some music that's used in as a legitimate music in the second book.
Right.
And so.
That's awesome.
And then on a related note, so another angle of this is for the second book, I'm actually going to, my father recently passed and he was a musician. I'm going to actually use one of the songs that he wrote for the book because it actually fits. And so I'm retweaking it a little bit, but that's like a way for his music to live on as well. Because he recorded a lot, but he never published anything, never did anything like that. And so it's just been really collaborative and really cool. Like I trust Jeff with anything that I send him music wise, and it works out. And the demos I've been getting back, like, I mean, he's posted a few things, but the other stuff it's just different. It's really cool. So we'll see what it's like, you know?
Yeah, no, I've seen some of the demos. I think it's a touching tribute that you're adding your father's music to this storyline. So not only can it be a part of him there, but it's also your way of saying, this is my dad's stuff for the entire world to listen to, something he never did himself while he was alive. And I think that's very special. But I've been super excited about hearing the audiobook version of this for such a long time. And I haven't really listened to audiobooks recently just because it's faster for me to read and I have to get through like 10 books a week.
How do you do this?
dedication. But I'm genuinely excited to listen to this particular audio because I'm like, it for me, it's music's not a huge part of my life. So I definitely appreciate when somebody does something different with it. Like it stands out of my mind. I've always said this about like Gipper Wathrick, who does like a playlist for his novels where he has like a particular song as a theme to each chapter. And for your version of it, of an audiobook where you're actually incorporating real original music into the thing, that gets me so excited for some reason.
I'm with you, you are with me, even though I can't see you. I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
Ooh, I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I can feel you, you can feel me, even though I can't see you. I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
Ooh, I know you're there.
I know you're there. Everything points to you.
I know you're there.
Everything points to you.
I know you're there.
Oh, I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
Oh, I know you're there. Distances move. You here with me, even though I can't hold you.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
Ooh, I know you're there.
I know you're there. Together as one, living the dream, even though I can't touch you.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
I know you're there.
Ooh, I know you're there.
I know you're there.
Everything points to you.
Everything points to you. Everything points to you. Everything points to you.
I know you're there.
Everything points to you. I know you're there. Everything points to you. I know you're there.
Yeah, I really do hope it does super well, because I know like a lot of audiobook fans have particular listening styles that they listen to. Like they don't like background music, or they don't like sound effects or whatever. And I'm kind of curious to see how this is received. But even beyond that, I'm excited to listen to it and see how like the music is actually going to be interpreted. And you saying like there's going to be like this Persona 5 like travel music as they go, like definitely gets me excited, because I definitely love that game. Spent way too many hours playing it, to be honest, and I don't think I've ever finished. But this experimental style is definitely like always fun because I'm always interested in seeing new things in our genre, and people like expanding the boundaries beyond just like regular fantasy, fantasy MMOs necessarily. And that's one of the things I really liked about Monster Hunter NYC, was like there's definitely like an intentional draw of grabbing from like monster capture games like Persona or Pokemon or Digimon, whatever you're pulling from. And I really like that about the story. So I'm double excitement about like the audiobook version of it coming out.
It's gotta be so fun. And I put as the influence Scott Pilgrim versus the World for this book. That like it's not as evident in the first book, but oh my God, just wait till what we're going to do in the second book. It is very much a part of playing instruments in the game, in the world, in, you know, as part of what's going on. And I don't even know. I pitched to Jeff the idea that I had brewing on this, and he's just like, what? So it's going to be really cool. And I think I'm going to be recording for the second book as well, because I got some of my dad's instruments and I can play them. And so I've been writing some things. I'll probably be part of it as well, because it's just such a fun project. I did a soundtrack before back in Austin for this movie. It was like an indie movie called The Ticket, and a really good buddy we did a soundtrack for it. And I always wanted to do soundtrack stuff, and I never knew how to get into it. And there was a time when I first started writing in 2007, about when I was getting serious about it. I started writing because I wanted to be able to do soundtracks for the books that I wrote. I had this stupid idea that, like, I'll just write some book to this year and then it'll be famous next year and I'll be able to do the soundtrack for it. I mean, of course, that's never what's going to happen. And but now it is actually happening in this really cool way. Like, I am taking part in doing the soundtrack for this. And so it's a whole new spectrum of enjoying it, I think. And I almost feel like the audio version, it's way cooler than the book version. I mean, the book version, I really tried to put some flair in there with the way it's set up and like the way the stats are listed and stuff. But I think the audio is what's going to really like make it something special. So
yeah, definitely. I did notice like the extra effort you went into to put the pictures of the stat page, and they were stylized very much like the like a Persona 4, those kind of, you know, stat pages. I thought that was kind of cool. But a lot of your writing has been very super interesting. A couple comments from chat room saying, Ian Mitchell says he liked Morning Assassin and he loved Steampunk is Dead. The audiobook version of it in particular really brought out the story for him. And John Kroom is in the chat room. He says he knows he has a good book if he's only listening to it at regular speed and not 1.25 or 1.5 times speed. So, hey, I think it's a compliment.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've never listened to a book at that speed. I can only imagine what it would be like. But I listen to music slowed down, and I enjoy music slowed down. I mean, I like DJ Screw and stuff like that. So, yeah, I guess it's just the reverse of that.
Yeah, it kind of, it's more like, sometimes certain audiobook narrators intentionally speak very slow at a very deliberate pacing, and it just doesn't work for some people. So, which is why, you know, Audible has like the option of increasing the read speed. I know I listen to like text to speech programs at like three times normal speed that it does, just because it lets me get through it a little faster, and I don't really lose any feeling since it's a machine voice anyways. So I definitely get some of that vibe from them. So let's shift into a little bit more of your writer stuff. You like I said, you've written tons of novels, more than I even thought was gonna be the case. I was impressed at 18, and you're like, 48 plus another 50 in other languages. No big deal. And
then I have like 5 or 6 that I just never published that are like full length. I mean 70 to 90,000 words. One day I think I'll publish 1 or 2 of them, but you know, they're kind of shit. So,
well, at least you're self-aware about what the quality is, at least. So that's good. That's good that you're self-aware. So a few questions about like when did you start like writing?
Mm-hmm. So actually, oddly enough, I started writing before I became a musician, and then I moved back into writing. And what I mean is, when I was like 7 or 8, I was very I wrote, I think I read like whatever we had to read in high school, Huckleberry Finn or Mark Twain, another book by him. And I came home and I just started handwriting this book. And I think I wrote like 30 pages of it or so. And then I stopped because I started getting into comics. And so I tried to do my own comics. I was really into Spawn and X-Men. And so I would, with one of the neighborhood kids, I tried to have a comic book because I thought like, okay, well, I'll write the stories and draw some of the pictures. He can do some of the inking, do some of the storylines. And of course, I mean, that all fails when you're like 9 to 11. But that's, I would believe, when I first started writing. And then my dad got me into music. I didn't actually like music at first, but I kind of got into it. And then that kind of took over. And it has an aspect of writing to it, you know, writing lyrics. But then after that kind of dwindled out, because I played for a very long time, I started writing again just because what I didn't like about being a musician is you have to deal with other people. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I mean, like, look, I had a 3-piece band and our drummer was slightly crazy. And everyone has like their issues, and you have to deal with all these issues just to put some music together that like 10 people are going to listen to. You have to like work so hard to have some show. I mean, I think the most we ever got paid for a show was at Emo's in Austin. I think we got like $50 to split 3 ways, And so like, I just started like, I didn't like to depend on all these other people anymore. And so that's when I kind of honed back in on writing. And the stuff I write now, very interestingly, I have written versions of it in the past, and everything I'm especially writing this year is something that directly hasn't been influenced by stuff from my childhood. And so I think that it's kind of cool that it's come full circle. And I actually started publishing my own stuff again in 2015. I started in 2011, but in 2015 as almost a protest. Because I was working for this publisher and they weren't listening to me about the industry and what I wanted to do. They were like tearing apart my work. And finally, I was just like, you know what? I wrote this book called Life is a Beautiful Thing. I wrote it in 2011 for NaNoWriMo. I'm just going to publish that. I don't even know what it is. I didn't know what cyberpunk was when I wrote it in 2011 because I was into literary fiction, to be honest. I thought I was writing literary fiction. Then it turns out like a dude doing like futuristic inhalants and having sex with androids. No, there is an actual genre for that. And so that's what kind of started it all. And I wrote the first feedback loop just like 2 or 3 months after that. I was had just finished reading Ready Player One, and I was watching Sword Art Online like religiously. And I'm like, I'm going to write a book like that. It'll be so original. Little did I know Russians had been doing that and, whatever. But that's kind of how I got to where I am right now.
Perfect. That is the journey, man. You captured it all. See, Soundwave Theater Live says music is one of the hardest things to do. Yeah, I always respect that about Jeff. That he does audiobooks, but I think his heart will always lie with like his music and that side of it as well. So I think he's like super duper excited that he can kind of combine the two for Monster Hunter NYC.
He's not the only one.
Yeah,
I'm so stoked, and I'm so stoked this is being well received because I was like, it would really suck if this wasn't so well received, and like I'm so stoked about it, and then I have to like be excited but also be disappointed. But at least I can be excited and like, hey, it's being well received, so that's good.
Like I said, the first time I think it was the you or Jeff mentioned that you were doing this project together this way. I just my ears perked up. I was like, really, that sounds really really cool. And then when the first time I heard Jeff like lay down that sample for everybody, I was just like, oh no, this is going to be kind of cool. Even though he was just by himself on his guitar, like just singing it out, I was like, that is a super catchy tune. So I'm like, oh, I'm not excited. I've already mentioned it several times. So writing stuff, you've written for, it sounds like you've been creative for a good portion of your life, and writing is just like the latest way that you've outpoured that creativity. You also mentioned that you're a full-time writer right now, right?
I work and I write full time.
Oh, really?
Which is, I don't recommend. Only reason I won't do it forever, but right now it works out that way for me. And so I obviously would want to write full time, and I already pretend like I do. And that's what I do. Like I am up at like this morning. I was up at like 5:30 to write before I had to go do some work, and then I am pretty much full time. I'm just kind of waiting for the time to pull the plug. Like when you're and some of the authors I talked to were I remember talking to them, like Luke, for example, when he was at this point where it's like, okay, pretty soon I'm like, right, I'm there. Like pretty soon I'm pulling it. Just let me, give me like 6 more months, that type of thing.
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. It's a huge, you feel like you're really leaping into a pool in which you're not sure the depth of it is. And so there's that little bit of anticipation, like, I'm probably going to be okay, but maybe I should wear this life vest first or get my life vest set up before I jump in full time, just because I don't want to like die unnecessarily. So it is definitely like that kind of concept there. I know
a few of us are like that. Like Apollos is like that as well. I know, like, because we talk about it all the time. Like we're kind of like scheming on it too. Like, hey, what did you find out about healthcare? What did you find out about this?
Yeah, no, it's definitely like things you have to think about as a practical adult, as opposed to just like being single, like, oh yeah, I can just do whatever I want. When you have like a family and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, healthcare, food on the table every single day, a home, all those things become issues you had to kind of think about. Question from chat room from Fenrin Wolflord: what is the feedback loop type of genre? Also, is it a 3-book series? I looked up an Audible and saw 3 books, but I just want to be sure.
Okay. Feedback Loop, it's very genre bending. It's solidly game lit. It doesn't have stats because at the time that I started writing it, I didn't know that was possible. And if I almost, there's part of me that was like, I should go back and add them because it totally fits into that, but I would never do something like that. Like I want it to be preserved for how it is. It's 7 books long. Audible only has the box set and the 3 books individually right now because they haven't all been recorded. But Jeff just recorded the 4th one, which we project will be out in 3 weeks or so. And he's working on them, and I'm working on the 8th book. I said I'm about a 4th to a 3rd through it, but I kind of got broadsided by my new works becoming kind of very popular. So I've kind of had to like, all right, like go with that for a while because it'd be stupid not to. And I really want the last book to be good because it's 8 freaking books long. So I don't want it to feel rushed. I don't want it to like write it in a month type thing. I want to like kind of mellow and let it, simmer.
Is book 8 planned to be like the final book in the Feedback series? Okay.
Yeah. And it's called Apotheosis Bloom. And it's the final. I probably pronounced that wrong. But it's the final. And so I don't have art for it yet or anything. Like I said, I'm at like the 20-something thousand word mark. Feedback Loop books aren't very long. They're like 60 to 70,000 words. So I'm moving there. But I started in 2 other side projects. So I have to, balance my time, right?
Yeah, no, you sound super, super busy. Like I know that I spend from the time I get up to the time I go to bed, like working on stuff or reading or writing or editing and all that good stuff. And you sound like twice as busy as me with an actual full-time job to do in addition to all like the novels you're writing. You've produced this year alone, let me see, probably like 7 or 8 novels if I'm counting in my mind correctly.
What I've published, let me see, I think I published something in January. I must have. January, I published 1. February, I published 2. That's 3. March, I published Cherry Blossom Girls. That's 4. April, Cherry Blossom Girls 2. This month, I'm publishing a Monster Hunt, and then 7 Cherry Blossom 3 will be at the end of the month. I finished Monster Hunt 2, so that'll be in the summer, and I'm a 4th to a half of the way through Cherry Blossom 4. So yeah, 7 published. Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, Don't write like this. Don't write like this, writers. It's not good for your health. Well, some people really do well at it. So
yeah. Like, do you find the quick pacing writing works for you well, or would you like rather take like, I don't know, 6 months to write like just like this thing? You know what I mean?
Oh man, who wouldn't want? I mean, I would love to be able to take like a year to work on something, but I wonder. Like, I think that there was maybe a point where it reaches its quality. The highest quality point it's going to reach. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like, okay, what if I took a year to write the next Cherry Blossom Girls book? Like, the whole point of that book is it's kind of fast paced and a little bit trashy and weird. Like, if I was really over analyzing every single part of it, would it like take away that, would adding that luster take away its shine? Like that type of situation.
Right.
So, I wonder about that. But I mean, I think that like for us indie authors, like, to consider like someone like, Brandon Sanderson or George R. R. Martin or Patrick Rothfuss, who could, publish a book every 3 years, or, and that would be awesome to be able to do that type of thing. But it's not our reality anymore.
Right. A lot of like authors who are prolific writers, and Ian, show me the right word in chat, kind of take a shotgun approach to writing some things in our genre. Like, they're willing to experiment and try different things, but it's very much along like, okay, I'm gonna try this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing, and even if like 1 out of 4 like really lands and finds like a really good audience, that's still really good because you still have a nice following for that kind of stuff and genre, and kind of see like you doing that because you have so many different series that are thematically different. They have different kind of characters, that have kind of game mechanics, and I think that's to me it's a very smart approach. If you can write like 20 books a year, then that will definitely work out for you because then you can feed all those different fans. For me though, it's like I'm not a particularly good writer. I'm not a fast writer. I only can write the stories that are in my brain. So it takes me like 5, maybe 6 months to write a 500-page novel. But for me that works out well just because it's more than I ever expected to do in my entire life. Considering I never really wrote anything until I wrote that first book. in my entire life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's always fun for me. So next question for you is,
But that's awesome though. I mean, what you're saying though, before that, seriously, like, it's still crazy to write 2 novels a year.
yeah.
Like, that's crazy. Stephen King writes 1. And like, I remember as a kid, like hearing like, wow, he's a really fast writer, you know, and like you could say, well, James Patterson writes a lot, but I mean, how much does he actually write if he just like plot it for someone else to write? Like, I mean, some of like the like really big like thriller writers are literally just putting their names on it and doing part of it, but like they're not actually having to sit there and pound out all the keys, you know? And so to even do 2 in a year, I think it's actually crazy. My family doesn't understand what I do, and I try not to even explain it to them really much now. But if I try to tell them I wrote 7 books so far this year, they would just be like, you know, short circuit out a little bit, like, well, okay, you keep writing your little ebooks, and it's like, no, it's a real industry, it's a real thing, you know.
Look, this Bill got paid because of this. It really, they send me real money.
Yeah. Yeah, they pay me real money. At least I think it's real. I can use it.
Yeah, no, it's hard when you try to explain to somebody, I sit at a desk and make up stories for a living or to pay my bills, and that's what I do. They're like, oh, yeah, good for you. You self-publish on Amazon. Yeah, I'm like, okay.
Or explaining audiobooks to someone. I told a relative recently, for when I was in Texas for all this funeral stuff, that like, yeah, I think I have like 13 to 15. I lose track. And they're like, oh, well, you know, your cousin she narrated something once. And I'm like, that's really cool that she did that. But it's an actual industry, you know, it's a real thing.
Like, many people will be impressed by this. That you're not it makes my heart sad. As I always think to my relatives when they come back with stuff. Like, it's only recently, like when I sent my dad like an actual physical copy of the novel, and he's like, oh yeah, here's an actual thing that I wrote that you can physically touch. Then he got excited and he started telling the relatives, and they all like, oh, now we have an author in the family, even though like probably none of them have ever read anything I've ever written. They're like, oh, look, here's a real book. It's not just like text on a page that he sent to some company. I'm like, yeah, okay, so thanks for that. And you know, the audiobook side is also fun, but it is very like, oh, it's not real to them. It's not tangible because it's just things that done completely over the internet, as far as like they're concerned. So I'm like, I absolutely get that kind of feeling, man.
Yeah, a very similar situation. So I told my dad that my dad actually was one of my first readers, and he didn't read any. He read he didn't read the feedback loop or anything, right? And so I sent him Jeff's audio of that, and I get a call from my dad, like a freaked out call. I had the voice message. I think I was still in Asia, maybe, and it was just like, son, have you sent this to anyone in Hollywood yet? Because I mean, I don't know what this is something else. And I mean, how many people are on this audiobook? There's women, there's robot sounding people, and I'm like, that's all just one person.
One guy.
I remember telling Jeff at the time, like, you freaked him out. He was freaked out. He's like, look, I'll represent you. And I'm like, Dad, you're not going to represent me please, Dad, you can't really know how to. He didn't know how to send an email. I'm like, you're not gonna represent me. But he was like, man, I just listened to this, and I'm listening to it, and I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, this is the realest thing I've ever heard. And I'm like, oh, that's the audiobook, you know?
Yeah, no, it's a different experience. Like, there's, I mean, a lot of my family members are older, like they're in the like 50s and 60s now at this point, and so there's definitely sometimes a technological gap, and they're also like Hispanic and like from a slightly older generation, so like their technology levels aren't that awesome. So I definitely get like that sudden, it's like, oh, this is a thing, like people do this for a living, or this people like read your stories and they'll pay you for it, or you pay someone to do it. I'm like, yeah, it's a whole thing. People buy them in like thousands every month from me, and like, hey, here you go. They'll pay out some cash, like, yeah. But it's fun to see that excitement, because you can also recognize, if you're an audiobook lover, if you're like an ebook lover, like you recognize that initial experience of like, oh, something goes off in them, and there's that connection to it, whether it's because it's, you know, read out loud or something. It's like, and that's always it's a very genuine memory that I'm happy. Thank you for sharing.
Mm.
Okay.
So you said there were some comments. We were going to comments. We
were talking about some comments, all kinds of fuss. Folks in here talking about Ian Mitchell's asking what kind of job that you do in real life. John Kroon was like, indie, publish or perish. So if you want to talk about your job, it's okay.
Yeah, a little bit. I work You know what? Actually, since Ian kind of beta reads sometimes for me and always reads early drafts, I'll reveal that answer in my this next series I'm planning to release in July. It's called Inanimate Objects. It's called Inanimate Objects, and it'll be there.
Okay,
So
well, there you go. And you will have to wait till
that's what it's called.
you beta
Wait,
read.
go
from
on.
him. Yeah. So you have to wait till you beta read until you can get that actual answers. But he has promised you the answer, my friend. So there you go. A few questions from me as well. Are you a pantser or are you an outliner?
Great. I'm a sandwicher.
Oh,
So I like sandwiches. I think it's important to have a beginning and have an end, and bring your beginning to your end. So I'm also the type of person that I only outline what I'm going to do the night before I do it. So I usually do it by hand. It's hard to stay disciplined every night because I usually watch something with my wife, and then she goes to bed because she hates anime, and then I'll watch anime, like some harem anime or something, and then I'll like sit there and I'll plan out what I write the next day. But I always have a beginning and an end, and so I just connect those 2 points. And I plan, but because it is helpful to know what you're going to write before you're going to write it. But I've never been the type that could like plot out an entire book. I could know the beginning, and I could know how I want it to end, and then that helps me get there.
right.
I just every night doing what I'm going to write the next day, and it also helps with keeping word count. Write like I need to write these scenes the next day. I'm assuming I've written enough now where I can say like a scene's going to be between 1.5 and 3,000 words or whatever. I know that will be that much, like that type of thing. So it kind of helps me plan out my writing too.
No, that sounds really good. I can always tell in some of your books, like a lot of this sounds freestyle. Like a lot of these things are like, oh, he started out this place and like went someone else like weird and unintentional. I'm like, oh, okay, that's fun. That's a fun way to write because it's discovery for you as well, in addition to like, for the reader. So it's always nice to see sometimes. And if it works for you, great. And obviously it seems to work out really well for you with your writing, man. So congratulations on that. What are the easiest and hardest things about writing for you?
The easiest is like the initial idea and or visualizing how I'd like this book to be. And then it's always fun when you start some new project only to realize like, well, this isn't so good. So maybe that's the hardest thing. I think the hardest thing is actually release. I've been very lucky this year, but I've released a lot of books that no one gave a shit about. And so, I can't stress that enough. This year is the only year that I've actually been releasing books that like people legitimately are really getting into. Whereas my other ones, it took them like, there was a group of readers, but not like a large group. And releasing and just expecting no one to care, but still doing it because it's your passion. I think that's the hardest part. And then also wearing all the hats is hard. Like as an indie, like I'm my marketer, I am my graphic designer, I'm all these different things, right? So that's hard. I think sometimes. Well, I can't just be the writer. I have to be like the proofer. I have to design the print version. I have to deal, talk with the narrators about it, do all these different parts about it. So
right. And do you find that those other hats hard to do, or do you relish the challenge of learning new skills?
Now I find them easy to do, but only because like it's hard. I've been doing it for a while, and as I said, I've been researching it since 2011. I can't stress that enough that like I've been like, all the self-publishing podcasts, all those types of things. I've been into that for quite a while. And it comes more naturally now. But if I try to explain, like for a minute, because I was talking to James Hunter and his wife does some of these things for him. And I was thinking of like maybe bringing my wife in. And then I started to realize what I would have to explain to her, be able to do that. And I was like, I wouldn't want someone to have to explain that to me, like it's so much. So I think it's actually quite difficult, but I've just done it so long that like putting the pieces together makes it seem like it's easier now.
Right. No, yeah, there are definitely skill sets you don't realize you have to learn when you're going to work for yourself basically and be your own publisher. Just so many little things that you already mentioned. When you first write, you're just like, oh, I'm just going to write a story and that's my job. I'm like, no, well, that's one of your like 20 jobs you're going to have at some point if you're going to do this yourself. And it's for some people, it's easier for them to go to a publisher and let them do all those other things. For other people, like you can do like self-publishing and you just realize it's more work. But there's also potentially more reward if you can find an audience and if people, will purchase your stuff. You get to keep more of the pie than you would if you gone to a publisher.
Yeah, and that's always there. There's always that. I mean, but like I'm still wouldn't be. And like I talked to other authors that we know about this too. Like there would be advantages to having like a hybrid deal. But the thing is, what publishers have seen too is like they don't want to give you your ebook rights. Like that's where they're going to make money now. Like they don't have to do anything for it. All they have to do, I mean, they have to advertise. They don't have to like bind or ship or create. I mean, like you've paid for the cover one time and it's just digitally distributed. So, unless you're like Hugh Howey or something, then who was able to get like all his ebook rights for his series, which I read, Silo. Yeah, it's not so common even really to have that kind of hybrid thing going either now, which is what I would like. I would love someone to handle all the other parts, but then they would want the ebook royalty too. So
yeah, it's one of those things. Like it's a trade off, and if you're cool with the trade off, great. If you're
and I am nowadays. I'm used to it now. I like it, and now that I've like before, it was weirder in 2015 to 2016 when I didn't know anybody in the community. I didn't know like anyone. I didn't talk to any other authors. I wasn't really active on Facebook. I was just trying all the things they say to try to do, like marketing lists and blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff. And, when I would read K-boards and like maybe I posted on there a couple times, but having a community and seeing other people doing it and being able to bounce ideas off, oh, it's so much better,
Perfect.
And I got to thank Blaze for putting some of these together. I mean, like the Game Lit Writers community, some of the secret author group that Bagwell added me to at the beginning, like all of it has been Blaze that's been putting it together. And so I think that's awesome because it's connected us with everyone. We can share experiences. If Amazon's doing something crazy, like has been happening lately, we can all like talk about it and be afraid for it, so it's that type of thing.
No, I heard you saying. That's what I like about our community law is that we're willing to help each other out. We're willing to share advice and lessons that we learn. One of the questions from Chatman is that now that you have the process down, what is the hardest part of publishing for you? And that's from John Kroom.
The hardest part, well, I don't know if I have it down yet. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure I do, but like, I'm not a confident person. And so even if I've released 2 or 3 different new types of books this year, I still won't think I have it down because like we saw from like the indie authors who did really well in 2011 to 2013, they had it down then. And then our groups and the group that's coming after us came in. So I don't know, I'm very much, I have a degree in history, so I'm try to take a historical perspective of things. That's kind of like my approach. So yeah, I don't know if I have it down. I guess I would start off that answer with that. And what I don't like, the whole process of like waiting to get the cover. Is it going to be right? Is this going to be, that's always kind of, ugh. And then seeing what the beta readers think and stuff too is always, even though beta readers are usually on your side, it's still, you never know when you have something new if people are going to like it or not.
Right, no, that's definitely true. Most of your beta readers are probably going to be fans if they sign up to read for free and to edit kind of for free. But if you're lucky, you will have people who are going to tell you this doesn't work, this works, fix this particular part, and they're honest and they're critical in ways that are very helpful. And not just like vaguely like, oh, this is nice at the end. Like I found like those type of beta readers or those kind of readers are the best for me, at least because they help me be a better writer, them to see like the flaws or the things that I don't see because I'm seeing from my perspective and not necessarily from where they're looking at it. That's always helpful for me as well. But since you have done so much research, like you said, you started looking at the self-publishing from, you said 2011, I believe. From now until then, you must have like read and listened to and tried a bunch of things. Is there any advice that you would give to somebody who is just starting out and considering to be a self-publisher from the lessons that you've learned?
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot because some authors in our genre say, just write a good book. That's all you have to do. And the thing is, like, the guys that write that, they do just write good books, but they also have good covers. And so that in itself is like a huge chunk of the marketing. I can't explain how much good covers are a huge chunk of the marketing, but you can look at my covers from last year and look at my covers this year and see the difference. And then you can see their rankings and then base your opinion on that.
Yeah.
It is a huge part. And to pay a lot for a cover sounds really crazy when you're first starting out, but it might make the difference for between you making your money back and you just doing what I did for like a long time, just keep publishing good books with crappy covers. So, it's part of the marketing of it though. And I don't know, I've done everything. I've taken the self-publishing formula, for example, Mark Dawson's courses. I've done it all, like, oh man, everything. I've read a lot of the books on it. Actually, I was supposed to go to the Sell More Book Show Summit in Chicago a couple of weeks ago, but that's when my father passed, so I wasn't going to go. So I'm constantly like have my eye on the marketing of it, and a lot of it is not helpful, and it's just like finding that one bit of nugget that you're like, oh, that works with what I'm trying to do. A lot of it doesn't apply to you. I mean, the thing is, except for the science fiction and fantasy marketing podcast, which I enjoy, a lot of it's like for people who are writing books that are more widely read. Like, how many people read thrillers versus read superhero science fiction books? You can go to any airport right now and throw a dart and you'll probably hit like a John Grisham thriller. And so, but you're not going to hit like, Drew Hayes' Superpowers or something.
Unless he's stuck it in the rack.
That's what ebooks are for, though. That's what ebooks are for. So, my point is, like, to take all those pieces and put it together, because I would never want to be one to jump in, but we all had to jump in at some point, right?
Right.
But I wouldn't want to jump in right now. But then again, I thought like jumping in 3 years ago, I thought I was too late. And so there's going to be someone 2 years from now that we're like, wow, who's this new guy? And he was going to have at some point had the doubt that am I too late or not? But he was not too late. So do it, but make a good cover of it, and do as much research as you can, because in the end, like I've been told by other authors, like all your research has not helped you at all. And there were points where I was like, yeah, that's true. And then every now and then it'll come back and actually help me, and I'm like, wait, it did help.
Right. Now that's definitely the kind of college mentality of like, oh, you learn so much in college, but you never really know what you're going to end up using. But if you don't ever have that knowledge in the first place, you can't use it. And that's kind of the philosophy I'm getting from you as far as like the marketing, self-publishing side of things. But the core thing I'm grabbing from you is like, have a good cover. That's definitely the key that you've learned, at least getting people's attention. Because I absolutely agree as far as like the marketing side. Like when people see those covers on Amazon, like the good covers will draw people, and they'll be like, oh, okay, I'll take that next step of clicking on this picture and clicking on this link, and then you can draw them with the blurb or whatever you sample you're going to grab. But if you can't grab their attention enough from like that split second scroll through on Amazon, like you're going to lose a lot of people. And so a good cover, even if it is like on the expensive side, and not all covers have to be super expensive to be nice necessarily, that's a whole bit different side of like, oh, finding the right artist and negotiating prices and everything. But yeah, you should definitely invest in a good cover. On the other side of that, like if you already have a standing base of an audience, you maybe don't need necessarily like an awesome cover every single time, because you already have a group of people that you're feeding to. But if you're just starting out, like having that good cover is definitely going to grab a lot of people's attention. And as much marketing as I do, like as far as like promoting people in the genre, I've seen like really great stories just struggle on Amazon, and I think they're amazing. I be like something like, oh, these are amazing stories of LitRPG, but they have crap covers, and I'm like, oh, that's going to hurt their sales so much, and it usually does.
It really, people always want to say, well, they'll see the review count, but it doesn't work like that. Because have you ever seen, and I've seen this like a million times, because I not troll. Yeah, I kind of, not troll's not the right word. Stalk. I stalk Amazon author pages and everything. I'm always looking at all this stuff. And I've seen books that are like terribly reviewed. Maybe they have like a 3-star average, but they have a good cover and they're selling better than the book that has a 5-star average and triple the reviews, that were both released at the same time. And like, you have to like always remember that people are vain, and that they're going to see that. And You know, that's even if they're like super enlightened, there's going to be something that brings them to that, because
most of us have eyes for a reason, right? We have eyeballs there, for a reason. And so we're definitely visual experiences draw us in more than what do you think? All those marketing campaigns you see for television and music and movies all have like really good effects, and even like the billboards are designed to pull your eyes to it, even like a fraction of a second, so that it's imprinted on your mind and they know that you're trying to pay attention to it. I mean, you should have that same kind of mentality like as far as like designing your cover art, and if you're in charge of your own system, your own business, like talk to your artists about what they can do and like what kind of ideas you can bounce by, and maybe take some like basic marketing classes about like as far as like artwork and design and what looks good and what's going to draw somebody. Because if your cover art is like super retro, but you're talking about like sci-fi fantasy, like maybe they don't match as well, and you're not telling the audience like what your story is about, or like giving them something worth like clicking on a picture or a link on.
And to bounce on that, like when you deal with your artist, give them as much as you can. Like my artist for Cherry Blossom Girls, who I just love my artist, I gave them like 10 pages of what I was looking for.
Right.
Like 10 pages. And they're also the same artist for Monster Hunt. No, keep their names secret. But 10 pages.
Stealing them. Yeah, I know. I get it.
Yeah, 10 pages of like, this is what I like. These are other examples. This is what I want. This is what I want this person. My wife is also an artist. I had my wife do a sketch, like just like a basic like figure sketch.
Right.
But you can do stuff like that, I mean, because we see, especially if you really like stalk Amazon author pages and you see all these covers, you kind of have an idea in your mind of what they're supposed to look like, and so give as many examples. Don't just say like, I want a guy with a sword.
Right. No,
okay.
Yeah.
Like what? I don't want it.
That doesn't help them come up with an idea, because they're designing their cover for you in particular. So if you want a particular style, you have to tell them. You have to like be communicative about like the things you want. Like for me, it was, I'm not a great artist. I'm not a great drawer, I should say, but I have an idea of each one of my covers, like what I want them to show. And so when I was talking to my cover artist, I put together like I cut and pasted like pictures from the internet, like a guy with like a little like invisible screen and like text in the background, like maybe whatever monster is, and a fairy next to him. And my artist was like, oh, okay, I can do that. And within a couple days, she gave me like a rough drawing, and from there we can be like, oh, and I want to look a little older or a little younger, and I want this to, you have to have text on that transition screen, because this is a LitRPG and that's going to be a big part of the story. So I want them to see that that's going to be a big thing in this story, and not that it's just like this fantasy story necessarily, but it's like it's you communicating. So you kind of have to have at least an idea in your mind, like, oh, what I want this cover to look like and to convey to the person who's going to be looking at it for like a fraction of a second.
Yeah, and then after you do that, then you got to work on the blurb. But just
that's
do
the
that
second
first.
step. Yeah,
do that first, because like I remember, and the sad part is how like hard-headed like some of us can be about it. I've been hearing that same advice since like 2013. You think I would have taken it? You think I would have like been like, why do all the authors keep saying that one thing? And then no, I'm just like, no, I want my cover to be like this. Like for the first Feedback Loop book, and the first time I had covers, they were like, I wanted them to be like this pop art thing, and like this kind of like 1960s style pop art. Like what? Right. It doesn't match at all what's going on in the book, but I thought it looked cool.
And it does.
Doesn't matter what I think.
Super cool, but it doesn't draw the audience into like what you're writing, and that's kind of that's the thing. Like, it's one of those like artistic things, I think, for a lot of like authors. It's like, oh, I have this vision of like my cover being like super indie and artistic and like conveying parts of my soul into like the cover, and like I want metaphors in there. And like that is amazing for like extra art that you can give your readers on your webpage or whatever. Nothing says you can't do that, but for sales wise, your cover should convey certain things to them, and it's very genre dependent as well. Like the LitRPG covers are going to be different than space opera covers. Like they have different, very different styles that are going to appeal to your particular reader. So do the research. The same way you did research for your novel. Hopefully, you're going to do research for your cover, because it's a whole thing. And if you're not the kind of person who's visual, who can kind of see those things, get advice. Talk to other people. Go talk to the actual cover artist who's going to be making the thing and bounce ideas, because they're the person who can help you out, like visually. They have years of dedicated work to art, and so they can kind of maybe give you more hints and clues about like what should or could work for you.
Yeah. And I mean, you literally just look at your genre. Like, please just look at your genre. Like, if you're writing a space exploration, you got to show me a ship on there with like it's thrusters in my face, like blasting like blue and yellow fire. Like, if you don't show me that, then I'm not going to be interested, And if you're writing fantasy, like having swords and dragons, and there are certain things, and I hate that part of it because I don't like to conform, right? And Cherry Blossom Girls is a very good example of this, because like I didn't want to do this style as much. Like, I was like, look, I remember talking to Luke about it and like having my doubts, and like, oh man, it's like hypersexualized, and it's not really. And I've like, my friends who read my stuff are like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, you got to think of the world as if you're an author and you're a published author, you have to think of the world as like a thumbnail sized JPEG, right? And so there's like this pink cover with like this dude with like beautiful women around him, like, and it worked. And I was mad that it worked. I mean, I was super happy, but I was also like, of course it worked.
Like, your paycheck was super happy. Like, your bank account was like, yay, Harmon, we get to eat this month.
My wife was too. Like, she had her doubts when I started telling her about it, and now she's like, "Okay, just do whatever."
Hey, like, whatever. Just I have bills to pay. We have student loans. We have kids to put through college, and we have a mortgage payment. So yeah, you keep doing that, man. Yeah. I get that. I understand that feeling. I mean, I can't. I don't write fast enough to do it, but I'm like, I absolutely get that concept. When I was deciding to go full-time writing, I had to convince my wife, like, yeah, this is a thing we can do. Here's the numbers, here's the math, the bank account, here are sales figures and trends. Like, we have like, there's a plan there. We have a nest egg. And so I absolutely get that particular aspect of like the financial side and the business side of writing in general. And sometimes just, this is a silly word to use, but to pander to a particular audience base who seems to like this aspect of a writing style, but at the same time still being fun for you, still being genuine for you. Like, you're not trying to necessarily sell out, I should say, but you're expressing things differently so that that, okay, this is satisfying the audience that you're hoping to read it. And as an experiment, I'm excited that it worked out for you, because we all have to eat, and so I absolutely get that.
Yeah, it's been something.
So there you go. So, okay. So good stuff there. Chat room is getting a little quiet. We have more viewers though. We have like 7 people watching us. We started out with, I think 5 or 6, and then it dropped down and came back up. So more and more people are definitely watching. Some people on the show, Robert Bjorsten says we should all be drinking hard liquor. And Ian's like, that's the wrong show. That's Drinking with Charles. So I think we've both been on there at some point, right? On the Drinking with Charles thing.
Yeah, I had a hangover the next day.
Did you really? Oh, okay. I don't remember how much you drank, to be honest.
I'm a very light drinker, so I don't really drink very much. So, but I was trying.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, you don't have a video camera then, did you?
I had this.
Okay, so you had
what
the phone
we're using
thing.
right now.
Okay.
My phone my computer is still updating. Like, I don't know what update it's installed. It's at this whole time it's been updating, so I'm just glad I had like some charge on my phone. But I had this.
Yeah, I understand. Like, and your phone might cut out at any time. If it happens to we'll just end the podcast. It's not a big deal. We've kind of gone through most of our questions at this point as well. Let's see. John Kroon says in Charm says, me, why is there a random cat girl on this cover? The author, cat girl equals 10,000 more sales. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what it is. Our genre in particular is very male dominated. And so there are going to be certain images and concepts that are going to get them to open that book and the novel pages. So it is what it is. Like, we're all adults. We all have different tastes, and that's okay. As long as, everybody's doing things they want to do. So that works fine for me and for everybody else, I think. One more question regarding to marketing. Do you have like a plan for, like, when you publish a book? Sometimes authors will have like beta readers. who have like arc versions of their stories? Do you do anything to like get early reviews, or you get like the ball rolling as far as like reviews on your novels?
Yes. I have loosely cultivated a first day, but usually it's a first couple day review team. And I always send the same group all the books, whatever I publish, and not all of them always review, but enough to do that gets it going. And I've been cultivating that for 3 years now. And so, these readers are busy. They're real people with real jobs and real lives. And so, I just have a kind of, and I keep adding more. I just kind of have a wide net, and I use that and just say, like, this is when you have to do it. This is where it is. And then I also have my own, the Proxima Galaxy Facebook group. And I can't remember. There's close to 300 people in there. So that helps some too. If you're just starting out, it's not. I remember hearing authors say this kind of stuff like 4 or 5 years ago and just dreaming about being able to do that. But it is possible to, like, as you build readership, you'll get like people who comment or send you emails and comment on your books and stuff like that. And those people become like really good people for that because they like your writing. They're there for you. They usually don't, they usually support what you're trying to do. They see the bigger picture, and so they're good for that. But not everyone's. There are some authors we know who, like, their first day, there'll be like 50 reviews. That's not so common. There's a few people that can do it, but, you're probably not going to do that. But, to have like 10 or 15 reviews in the first 2 days, that's still really good. Yeah, you can still rank really high doing that. So.
Yeah, and Ian's advice from chat is cultivate people. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Like, cultivate good relationships with your readers, and they'll go out of their way to like help you out and to give you like early reviews when you launch your novel. If you treat them right and you respect them and you have a relationship, people will go out of the way to help you.
Yeah, my readers are so fun, and some of them are. They know, some of them know more about my books than I do, which scares me because I'm the one that like created all that, and like I'll have a few that like I'm pretty sure I could quiz them. I'm pretty sure I could just ask them a random question about the feedback loop galaxy that I don't know the answer to that they may know the answer to.
Yeah, they're definitely those passionate fans who know more about your novels than you remember. Like, I wrote that like 2 years ago. How do you remember that? Yeah.
Yeah, and so I have really cool groups of readers, and they're really diverse too, which is really cool. Like, one of my like first beta reader, she's been reading for me for like 3 years, and she still does. And she's a woman from Scotland named Kay, and she's read every one of my books, and she just reads them and then comments on any mistakes or anything. That's what she does, and like she's amazing. And like you just meet, because of this new medium, we just meet people like that.
Right. Do you ever chat? I would never do you ever chat with your fans, like on video chats or like Facebook streams?
I chat with a good many on Facebook, just Messenger. Some of them are like Bobby Bird. I can never say something. Bjurstrom. Yeah, there it is. Like, and like I chat with Ian. I chat with a guy named Arthur. I chat with Scott Reed, Gary. I know them all. Gary Todd. I chat with a bunch of them, and they also point out if there's issues in my book, which is awesome. KL Phelps recently, one of my readers, sent me something that I was like, oh, because there's still mistakes. Like, it's just so hard to find all the mistakes. And like, I appreciate that. Like, I've had people that they're really apprehensive to contact an author about that. And I love it. Like, if someone's like contacts me, like, here's the issues, I'm like, thank you. But I guess some authors have like blasted people for doing this or something.
I think it's more along like how they choose to contact you and what they say. If it's like, oh, here's some critical analysis, or here's like some mistakes I found, if you want to correct them, or like, these are my feelings on these characters, as opposed to like, this is the worst novel ever, you should go kill yourself for the crimes against literary communities across the nation. Those are less helpful.
Well, my favorite, I was telling this to Jeff the other day, my seriously favorite review on Cherry Blossom was a 1-star that was like a terrible book by a terrible writer about a terrible writer. Because like the whole premise of the book is he's a terrible writer. Like, if you like read the book like with with your tongue in your cheek, he is not a good writer, but he thinks he's pretty good.
Oh, and there you go. His phone died. Oh no, there you go. He came back. Thought I lost you.
I love that review because some of what I noticed too, which you might have noticed too, ranking higher, man, it brings out some crazy reviews. Like when I used to rank, like the highest I would have ranked would maybe be like 1100 or something. Like it's still like fans and people that like your book, occasional bad review. Man, when you're ranking up past 500, like there'll be some people who should not be reading your book who will blast you, and then they'll go on to read like the second book and blast that one too. You're like, why are you still reading this?
Yeah, I was like, well, at least you bought my book, so thank you for the opinion. Thanks for your dollars. Like if
thanks.
I'm like, if you buy my book, you can say whatever you want about it. You paid for it, so that is absolutely right.
One thing that cracks me up is for Fantasy Online 3. There was the only 1-star review is like, this book is in first person present tense. It's like, that's the third book. Like you would have known that by then. Like. How did you get a verified review?
Yeah. Unless they like jumped in the third book, which I'm like, that's an interesting choice as well. If you chose to like pick up the third book in a series instead of book 1. So I'm like, okay. I personally, I stopped reading reviews like after book 1 because they made me cry.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, this is not healthy for me. This is, I need to focus on writing, so. But like,
I usually am the same way. I was kind of broadsided by Cherry Blossom, so I was kind of watching it because I'd never seen reviews come in so quickly. So I was kind of like, it kind of piqued my interest. Usually I just put it up and like my fans will say like, here's a link to the review, and I still won't read it because it makes me nervous to read them.
Because people get critical, and it's like, oh, are they going to like it? Are they going to hate it? And it kind of feels like they're saying like they're liking you or hating you. Yeah. I get that.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. Okay, so perfect. I think we're good on time. We got talking about for like an hour and a half now. I'm just about out of questions myself. So unless anybody in the chat room has anything they want to ask real quick, we're probably going to end this particular show and this podcast. Unless there's anything you want to talk about, Harmon?
No, I just got Cherry Blossom 3 is coming out. Monster Hunt audiobook will be coming out soon. I project June. Monster Hunt 2 will come out in July. I'm going to release another superhero harem in July called Inanimate Objects, which I am incredibly stoked about because it's really weird and really cool. And I'm still working on the Feedback Loop 8. Please don't email me about that. I'm sorry. Just taking a little bit more time. And then Cherry Blossom 4 will come out in, I believe, July as well. So that's what's going on. I'm just going at it.
Well, man, it looks like you're knocking out those big titles that have the success. So that's really good for you. That's going to fund the other projects that you may have like more of a like literary passion for. So that's all. It takes all kinds to satisfy people. So everything's good. And I think it's pretty. Ian Mitchell says the St. Jude's is up to $1,000. So if you're not aware that was the. Recently, we did a live author stream for St. Jude's charity, and it's nice to see that they're getting up to $1,000 in the money that they've collected. So that's really nice. So awesome. And Ian also says thanks for the card. You sent Ian a card, I guess. He says thank you.
Yeah, I sent some of my I tried to. I was trying to mess with like wax seals, but I'm not so good at that. I burnt the hell out of myself.
I can imagine. It's not as easy as they make it look in the movies. I'll tell you.
Man, I had a cool stamp to it as a skull on it, but no. I probably won't do that.
Didn't work out. Okay, so perfect. So thanks a lot, and I think that's it. We'll have, of course, links to all your books, to your blog, to your Facebook page, to your Twitter, to your Goodreads page, and all links to your novels that we talked about today in the show notes for this particular podcast on our website. So thanks a lot, man, for hanging out. If you want to say goodbye to everybody, we will end this particular podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Ramon, and thanks everybody. And I'll see you around, and I'm sure I'll be seeing. I'm going to try to come to Dragon Con. So if I do, let's hang for a minute because I'll be hanging. I'll probably be like tagging along wherever Luke goes. And I'm just glad that you, and also I'm really glad that you do this. I'm glad that your listeners listen to this because I know this podcast has been quite influential and it's an awesome genre. So thanks for everyone for reading our books and being part of it and supporting us and making our dreams come true. I mean, what kid who grew up playing RPGs and reading comic books ever thought they'd actually get to somehow combine that in a literary fashion? So thank you.
Yep. Readers make the dreams come true. So thank you, everybody. So everybody, until we can hang out again, folks, remember to go read some LitRPG and goodbye, everybody.